Time for another edition of Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Bradley Meyer of the Okoboji Wellness Clinic. And Dr. Meyer, you've been off and about learning more about medicine.
Never ends, which is a good thing. I was out in Nashville for a few days with my wife, Carrie, connecting, recharging, learning more. I think the last 4 to 5 years, I learned more about the practice of medicine than I did the previous 15 years of practice. So super amazing to be around other physicians. It was International College of Integrative Medicine. It's an organization that's been around for quite some time, decades, founded out of the Michigan area, and then now it has members from across the globe. And of course, in the last 5 years, time around COVID, there were some more traditionally trained doctors that have leaned to integrative medicine, like myself, where we're looking at combining what we were taught in medical school, traditional, along with more of a holistic balance and focus. And what's interesting is some of these docs have been at it for 30 to 40 years. They've been in their solo practices doing things like ozone, hyperbaric therapy, some of these things that are not as broadly known as they should be because of how incredible they are. But again, picking up speed, especially now, folks are certainly aware and searching for more ways to help themselves feel better. It's fun because you get a chance to meet folks that across the country that found certain things that are working for them. They share that knowledge, and it's a very collegial setting. Had a chance to run into Peter McCullough. I did a podcast with him maybe about 4 to 5 years ago. He's a cardiologist out of Texas, and he's worked a lot with the spike protein and COVID long haul, and he had a lot to share. He's really focused his practice on that and how that spike protein's affected the heart. So it was a good reminder to me that I think I'm going to start measuring some spike protein antibodies on folks because, as we always talk about, Dave, we're trying to get that body and that all the systems fired back up so they're in a space of doing what they want to do. The body wants, it's a healing machine, but sometimes we got to find where those toxins are, what those toxins are, and that spike protein is an example of one of those toxins.
Yeah, and there are tests available for testing the spike protein now, and it's an area during the COVID era where that spike protein was not supposed to last in the body very long, and they have taken tests of people testing their spike protein. 3.5 years later, it's still running through the body, and that was never supposed to happen.
You know, that's the conversation spot on that I had with Dr. McCullough. And yeah, there's a test it's a lab core test. I think it's around $60 or $70. And he was sharing that he's seen some levels up to 15 to 20,000, but typically over 1,000 is something that you really need to pay attention to, especially if folks are coming in with symptoms. And timely, this week, God always times things up and tees things up. I have a guest from the Des Moines area that has been working through exactly the spike protein issue and significant headaches and very low energy, affecting quality of life for the last 3 or so years for this person. And so we're up together working on his journey, and we certainly grabbed one of those antibody levels on him. So we've worked quite a bit over the last few years with folks that have been in that COVID long haul category and had some really good wins. And I think a lot of folks come to us in that area that are quite frustrated and feeling quite defeated. And we again always look at them as the individual, and then we apply some of the basics, and which is, again, everybody, folks, Dave, cannot say that I don't need to work on maybe getting that processed food out of my diet and put the Diet Coke away. I just was one of the things that was, again, the whole learning. I love it. The one doc, he's an old veteran out of Michigan, MD. He's like, medical school never ends for us in the integrative setting. We're always going off to conferences once or twice a year, learning more. And the Diet Coke front, I just reminded, there was a lecture even talking about aspartame. And aspartame, it's in a lot of, it's artificial sweetener. It's in Diet Coke, and most folks don't realize that the body breaks that down to formaldehyde, which is toxic to the body. And so, prime example, somebody that walks in the door yesterday with a Diet Coke can next to them. Well, that's kind of an easy plug and play right there, and it was a good reminder. Sometimes little things like that can be big things. So we try to identify all those toxins, clean them up, and many times working on that mitochondrial health, increasing oxygen to the body is typically a very amazing and good thing. And it's kicking the dust off the carburetor, so to speak. So just really inspiring trips always, and a reminder that this is how much of a mission this is. Some of these folks, other doctors that have continued to grasp for more, we're not satisfied with where we are. And, we had Dr. Garcia was there. He's a physician, MD, out of New Jersey, and he's been working with magnets for the last 15 years and biomagnetism. So we always talk about electrons and frequency. Well, electrons, grounding, we've talked a lot about that today, but how huge having a sufficient pool of electrons is to the health of a human. And there are ways to work with magnets, and it's just kind of working similar to like acupuncture points or meridian lines. And he went down to Mexico. His dad, actually, Dr. Garcia's dad was a physician as well. And some of the things that he was doing, he had research to back this up. And he's been treating, believe it or not, COVID with it, malaria, many chronic pain conditions, folks that came in with gait disturbances, and that he would work with them with magnets in different locations of the magnets. And you could see the before and after videos, and it was absolutely incredible. So just when you think you have a lot of the tools in the tool belt, which we have a bunch, there's always more to consider and add. And because what might work for one person extremely well, it might be something else. And that was the beauty of all these doctors. We all have a little bit different, unique approaches from region to region. We have some similarities, but as I talk about that healing machine, the body, and you apply some of the basic concepts of finding the toxins, removing the toxins, supporting the detox process of the body, making sure you're having bowel movement, lots of water, that you can work from a lot of different angles to get the body back into that space of firing better. One other big thing too, Dave, we learned about, big thing is epigenetics and genetics. Well, a lot of times when we're exposed to these toxins, we have SNPs in our DNA. The DNA is the building blocks, the proteins to make things in your body to sustain life. And a toxin exposure, whether it's to chemicals or to EMFs or whatever it may be, formaldehyde, for instance, can cause more SNPs. So a big piece in the past with folks' health, they always would say, well, it's my genes, I'm going to blame it on my genes. More recently, we found that, yes, genes play a factor, but it has to do with the environment. That's the epigenetics. But you have these SNPs that can be affected, so the more and more toxins that you have, they can be SNPs in the DNA that affect your day-to-day health. Knowing what these SNPs are can then help us create a more specific plan for you. What are going to be the best supplements or best nutritional approaches, best foods for you? What maybe do we need to stay away from based on those genetic SNPs? And then once you do that, then the body even can work around some of those SNPs and hit its stride again.
So last week we touched on this just a bit. I told you that Robert Kennedy Jr. talked about the mitochondria. I bookmarked this, and I'm not handy enough to figure out how to get some of these things sent your way, so I'm just going to read what he said. He said, sugar is as addictive as crack and very bad for you. It grows tumors. It destroys your mitochondria and your metabolic process. These chemicals are weapons of mass destruction against the human metabolic process. and they're destroying our kids' metabolism. And all these kids are metabolically injured. But again, he threw in that big word, mitochondria.
Yeah, and, it's true. And a lot of times, folks, these are clues, too. The microbiome is the big place where neurotransmitters are made. We need the amino acids to make these neurotransmitters to feel good. And so sometimes when we're not making those neurotransmitters very well, like serotonin, for instance, it becomes like the egg before the chicken or chicken before the egg. So your neurotransmitter production in the gut might not be very good, not making serotonin, but you can get a hit, an increase in serotonin with sugar. So this is why a lot of times there's that drive to grab sugar, because it's almost like a hit, like he was explaining. Mm-hmm. And it's just what we're trying to fill a void for something we're not making very well. So that was another piece that was pretty interesting, is most of us were low in the ingredients that are needed to make these amino acids, to make these neurotransmitters. And then you see folks reaching out for things like alcohol because maybe they're not making dopamine very well. They don't have the raw ingredients to make that, so then they're reaching for things that fill that void. So if we can figure out what those things are that are deficient and figure out those things that are toxic, and then circle around that old mighty mitochondria, and an amazing team, a healing team, wellness team that's looking to identify all the clues and work from different angles, from the brain to the nutrition, to Janet Gentle working on the movement of lymphatics and craniosacral and the cerebral spinal fluid. Everything is connected, and so oftentimes we get uber focused in one area, the heart, for instance, if we have heart symptoms, or the brain if we have brain symptoms, and there are times when you have to focus in on those areas if it's an acute situation, but we don't want to look at those areas in a vacuum. We want to look at them as connected to every other part of the body, and then, because typically if that one area is out, there's another area that's out of balance as well, and then when you work to bring all those weaker links back into where they need to be, it's going to be a positive impact in every part of the body, including the heart or the brain.
All right, we've got to go. We do want to let people know, if you have not been feeling well since COVID or during COVID and are just not wanting to accept that this is what your life should be about, that spike protein test, like Dr. Meyer said, it's like $80, something like that. I would highly recommend you go visit Dr. Meyer, or at least have a call with Dr. Meyer and say, listen, I haven't been feeling well since COVID. Here's my story. And so, Dr. Meyer, how can folks make that happen?
Yeah, we do a complimentary discovery call at 712-339-6024. And if you don't want that, and you're just like, I'm ready to get started right away with that hour visit, same phone number, 712-339-6024. The time is when you're ready, but know that you've got a team here of compassionate, empathetic folks in the healing space that are ready and most capable to work with you and provide some hope and provide some answers and provide a plan. And then we get working, and as we move forward over the weeks and months, it is a beautiful thing to see folks that things start to flip on and they start to get some wins, and we develop some momentum, and we take that path and that journey the rest of their life. Again, they're the ones, I always say, you're the one that is working to heal yourself. We are here to assist. We're here to give you the education and the tools to make it happen and support you and we'll cheerlead you. Ultimately, your journey, but we are happy to be there alongside you for the journey. 712-339-6024. We're off Highway 71 in Spirit Lake. And so when you're ready to get going, give us a call.
Thrive.
We'll start together.
Thrive, not just survive. I'll never forget the call we had, a gal you had out of Southwest Iowa that called you from her hospital bed because she was at the end of the line and made an appointment to come see you, spent a week or so, I believe, with you. It's an incredible story. And Hope and healing is out there.
Absolutely. Don't stop looking for it. Don't stop advocating for yourself. There are answers out there. There's always hope. There's always answers.
Absolutely. Dr. Meyer, always a pleasure. Have a great day.
Thanks, Dave. Be well, everyone.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Bradley Meyer at the Okoboji Wellness Clinic. You can find out more at okobojiwellnessclinic.com.